Hello, today we're going to talk about how to divide numbers with scientific notation. So we've done multiplying, now we're going to do dividing. So if we look here today, we're going to practice dividing, but we have to make sure we know how to divide two different types of numbers. One is decimals and one is exponents. So the first one is 2.26 divided by 2. So we're figuring out how many times does 2 go into 2.26. So 2 goes into 2 once. 1 times 2 is 2. Subtract, you get 0. Drop down the 2. 2 goes into 2 one time. 1 times 2 is 2. Subtract, you get 0. Drop down the 6. 2 goes into 6 three times. 3 times 2 is 6. Subtract, you get 0. Don't forget your decimal point. Your decimal point moves straight up into your answer. So your answer is 1.13. We also want to make sure that we know how to divide exponents. So one way of doing it is my favorite, just expanding it out. So 10 to the 5th is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 tens over 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 of them. Now you can cross off those that are in common. So you have 10 and 10. 10 divided by 10 is 1. 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 So on the numerator, you're left with 1 times 1 times 1 times 1 times 1, which equals 1. And in the denominator, you have 1 times 1 times 1 times 1 times 1 times 10, which is 10 squared. Another way of doing it is to subtract them. So you have 10 to the negative 2 minus 6 would be 10 to the negative 2 minus 6. I always write it out just to make sure I don't make a mistake. Negative 2 minus 6 is negative 8, so my answer is 10 to the negative 8. Now, if you know how to do that, scientific notation is just putting it together. Oops, sorry. So let's look at this first example here. We have 7.2 times 10 to the 6th divided by 1.2 times 10 to the negative 2. So let's go ahead and start this. So I like to write mine as a fraction. It's just how I like to see things. So I write it out as a fraction. So now I'm going to take 1.2 and I'm dividing it into 7.2. Now, remember, you can't divide with a decimal in this number out here, so you have to move it. Really, all you're doing is you're multiplying 7.2 and 1.2 times 10. And if you multiply each of these numbers by 10, the decimal point moves over. So I'm really now going to have 12 into 72, which makes it so much easier. So how many times does 12 go into 72? It goes in 6 times. 6 times 2 is 12. Carry the 1. 6 times 1 is 7. Look at that. It comes out lovely. So that's my first part of my answer is 6 times 10. Now I need to figure out the exponent. So I just subtract. I have 10 to the 6th minus 2, which gives me 10 to the 4th. So then I get 6 times 10 to the 4th. And that is in scientific notation. I have a number between 1 and 10 and an exponent. So pretty easy. Let's try some. So I have 7.2 divided by times 10 to the 9th divided by 9. So I'm going to take 7.2 first, and I'm going to put that out here, and I'm dividing it by 9. So I don't have any decimal points I have to worry about, so I'm just going to put my decimal point there. I'm just moving it up, and I'm going to divide. So 9 does not go into 7, but it does go into 72. 8 times 9 is 72. Subtract, you get 0. Pretty easy. Then I have 10 to, so that's 0.8. And then I have 10 to the 5th minus 3 is 10 squared. Now, you might think you're done, but if you look at this number carefully, it really is not in scientific notation. And if you are wondering why, this decimal point cannot be in front of the number. Remember, my number has to be between 1 and 10. It has to be somewhere in there, and 0.8 is not in there. So I have to move this decimal point one place to the left, or to the right, sorry. So I have 8 times 10. Now, since I moved it one place to the right, I'm actually going to be subtracting 1. Remember I said when you move it backwards, if you're going to move it backwards, when you think about it that way, if I moved this back to get the original number again, I would actually be dividing it, so I have to subtract. So you get 8 times 10 to the first is your final answer. So these two should be equal to each other. Okay, let's look at the next one. 4.86 times 10 to the fourth divided by 9. So 9 goes on the outside. 4.86 goes in the house. Move the decimal point up because I have nothing else to do with it. 9 does not go into 4. It does go into 48 5 times. 9 times 5 is 45. Subtract, you get 36. 9 goes into 36 4 times. You get 36, 0. So the answer is 0.54 times 10. And if I subtract, I get 10 to the fourth minus 6 is negative 2. Now remember, it's okay to have negative exponents in scientific notation, but again, you always have to look at your problem here and say, oh, this is not a number between 1 and 10, so I am moving it. It's going to be 5.4 times 10, and when I move it that way, I'm going to subtract 1 from it, so minus 3. Okay, on these next ones, I suggest you pause the video, try them, and then come back to it and see how you did. So for this one, I have 1.92 times 10 to the negative fourth divided by 3 times 10. So I'm going to put my 3 on the outside and 1.92 on the inside. I don't have to worry about the decimal in front, so I'm moving it up here. 3 does not go into 1, but it does go into 19 6 times. 6 times 3 is 18. Subtract, you get 12. 3 goes into 12 4 times. So I have oh dear, let me redo that. I have 0.6. Well, what happened there? So I subtracted that, I got 12, then I got 4. 0.64. I think I deleted everything. And then I'm going to subtract 10 to the negative fourth minus 1, because there's a 1 here. And I get times 10 to the negative fifth. Again, this is not in scientific notation, so we have to move that decimal point over. And I get 6.4 times 10. And I'm going to subtract another one here, so minus 6. And the next one. I have 6.2 divided by 4. 4 goes into 6 once. 1 times 4 is 4. I get 2. Drop down the other 2. 4 goes into 22 5 times. I'm going to move my decimal point up. 5 times 4 is 20. I get a remainder of 2. Now, you can keep adding zeros because it's after the decimal point if you remember that. So I'm going to add another 0. 4 goes into 25 times. So I have 1.55 times 10. And then I have 7 10 to the 7th minus a negative 8. Be careful. So remember, you add the opposite, so you have 7 plus 8 is 15. And if you look, this is already in scientific notation. So let's review what we do. So the first thing that you want to do is you want to divide the decimals. All right, so make sure that you're dividing the decimals. You may have to do it without a calculator. Then you want to divide the exponents. And remember, the rule says that when you divide exponents, you subtract, which means you are going to have to watch your signs. And then last but not least, and most importantly, I'm going to star it. You want to make sure the number is in scientific notation. Or you could say is between 1 and 10. If not, you need to adjust the exponent. I don't know why my pen is making that noise. I don't know if you can hear it, but I can hear it. Okay. Thanks, and I hope you have a great day.